What's a historical fact that would shock most people to find out? The ancient Greeks, inventors of democracy, would elect their officials to one-year terms. Each official's finances were audited at the beginning and end of their term. If anything was amiss, they would be tried and executed. Picasso, Bruce Lee, and J.R.R. Tolkien all died the same year. The year 536 was deemed the worst year to be alive. Volcanic eruptions caused prolonged dark sky for up to 18 months. This then caused a mini ice age, crop failures, and plague over the next 10 years, killing millions. Also, the name Tiffany has been in use since the 1600s. Sharks are older than the rings on Saturn. We are closer to the time of the T-Rex than the T-Rex is to the time of the Stegosaurus. It took about 4 times longer to get from copper swords to steel swords than it took from steel swords to atomic bombs. People used to get their feet X-rayed at the shoe store to check their shoe fit. When the SS Britannia went down in the South Atlantic, a raft of survivors managed to get away. According to the men on the raft, there was one more survivor on the raft with them. But he was unfortunately pulled under by a giant squid, which then returned and attacked their lieutenant named Cox, who they managed to save before scaring the beast away. Their claims were called out as preposterous and made up when they returned home, until Lieutenant Cox got sick of being accused of such and went to see a local marine biologist at a college. The biologist validated Cox's claims as he had scars 1¼ inches in size, which definitely belonged to a 23 feet long squid. It is believed that this story is the only known substantiated report of death by giant squid. We put man on the moon before wheels on suitcases. The U.S. secretly injecting people, typically poor minorities, including children and pregnant women, with plutonium and other radioactive materials, and then studying them for decades. When they finally admitted it, the report was released at the same time of the O.J. verdict to bury the story. When the Colosseum was used for fighting, they used to line the stage with sand to soak up the blood. The Latin name for sand is harina, which means sand or sandy space, so that's why we call modern concert show spaces arenas. During World War II, the United States military developed a plan to use bats as bombs. The idea was to attach small incendiary devices to bats and release them over Japanese cities at night. The bats would then roost in buildings, and when the devices detonated, they would start fires, causing chaos and destruction. While the project, known as Project X-Ray, never saw combat, it's a bizarre example of the lengths to which military strategists were willing to go during the war. That in 2006, the Earth was hit by a gamma ray burst from a distant supernova that stripped away about 6% of our top atmosphere. It's fine now. If it had been bigger, it would have wiped everything on Earth out, and by bigger I mean if it was 20 to 25%. The British Pet Massacre. In 1939, about 400,000 cats and dogs were unalived in order to prepare for World War II food shortages. This was approximately 1/4 of the pets in England. Doorknobs were invented in 1848. The 2 atomic bombs dropped on Japan unalived around 200,000 people. Before that, Imperial Japan killed 30 million in East and Southeast Asia, and those are only the statistics of war crimes, not so kawaii of them.